Hello and good evening. Welcome back to Automobilista Australia, where we are here for round 7 of the Touring Car Championship. Just in qualifying, I do apologise for missing obviously the last couple weeks in the Touring Cars and the Rookie Cup, but it is good to be back once again. At the moment, I haven't got anyone in the commentary box as I've just finished dinner, so it's very late for me to sort this out, so I do apologise if it all seems rushed. It's been very, obviously, yeah, as I said, it's been very late for me to put things together this evening, so as I didn't know if I was going to make it or not, but we're here, and we're just in qualifying at the moment. I'm just trying to set up the HUD, there we go. And currently Termo sitting on provisional pole with 5 minutes left. He set a 1 minute 15.1. I can't tell you of what is a good or bad lap time around here. So I do apologise for that. It's currently got, see, Brian Walsh out on the circuit at the moment. Obviously this being private qualifying session, one shot. And the 3 cars out on track at the moment being Mike Coulston, Dwayne Davies and Brian Walsh. So 7/10 down in the opening sector, so Walsh will be hoping to find a little bit more time. And 1.6 down in the middle sector. It's a very fast and flowing circuit, with turn 4 being the slowest of the corners out on the track. It's very similar to, I'm trying to think of the circuit. It was one of the final rounds towards the end of last season that we ran at, albeit it did have a chicane, that one. As I said, I can't remember the circuit off the top of my head, and Brian Walsh goes P7, so Whitmore's had a bit of a mare there. He must have made a mistake because he's 1/10 behind him and a bit down on his normal pace. So got Mike Coulston out on track at the moment. He's about half a second down on Dwayne Davies, who's out on track at the moment. So we'll cut to Dwayne Davies. Mike Coulston with 25.7 in the middle sector, which is up there as some of the fastest. But his first sector's let him down there, and Dwayne Davies in the middle sector, only 2/10 down, so he is within striking distance of Termo. Should he put together the final sector, he's pushed very hard there. Obviously taking a lot of curb and grass on the inside, and then ran wide on the exit. Across the line, he did make up time, but not enough, so he is 10th and a half down on Termo, and will start currently in 3rd place. And Mike Coulston, who was also on a lap, he will slot in 7th. He managed a 1 minute 15.7. We do have 2 drivers that have yet to set a lap, and that's Brandon Rast and Brandon Faultley. Ross 2/10 down in the first split. So that first split from Termo, well, he's miles faster than everybody else. Looking at live races, so check out amsoz.liveraces.com for all your live timing needs. But yeah, looking at that, obviously Ross is the second fastest in the first sector, but still 2/10 down on Termo. He's put in a mega first split. And he's lost about a 10th and a half again in the middle sector. So Ross is going to have to put together a very strong final sector. But we did see, obviously, Dwayne Davies put in a very strong one, and he clawed back sometime. Ross approaching start finish line. It's not that one, it is this one here, and he does jump up, so he found a lot of time in that final sector. He's very smooth, very contrasting style to Dwayne Davies, who did make up time, but he ran wide on the exit, took curb in the obviously at the apex of the final turn. He did find time, but not enough. But Brendan Ross, on the other hand, continuing his pretty decent form of late. And Brenton Foley, he'll be hoping for another decent run. I do believe he was one of the race winners last time out. And he's up in the first split, which still obviously isn't the fastest first sector, but he's up on Brendan Ross at the moment. So he's about to approach, yep, up by 2/10 in the middle sector, but as we just saw, Brandon Ross, very, very quick in the final sector. So Foley will need to be on his game here. Had to get off the throttle a little bit there in the mid-corner. There's a long final turn. Didn't use all the road on the exit, but still a smooth final sector. And he just nicks it, 2.5 tenths. So the last drivers out on the circuit used all the rubber put out on the track by their rivals to good use, and Brenton Foley will start race 1 of round 7 from pole position, and Piston Broke Racing's Brandon Rast will start alongside him on the front row. Obviously, last night he started on the front row as well in the Formula 1 series. Termo will start P3. Obviously, he started his lap with a bang, but that last sector cost him quite dearly, because his final sector 25.3 compared to 24.7 for both Ross and Foley. But still, P3 for Termo. Steve Bolger will start 4th, and Dwayne Davies will round out the top 5. Alright, well, we'll just take a short break, but we shall be back in a moment. Alright, so the driver's briefing has been conducted. Pretty straightforward. Everybody has obviously that is here tonight. Not the biggest grid, only 13 cars at the moment. But yeah, everybody has driven in the series before, so don't need to go over too much about the series. Everybody's been through it many times before. But let's see, as you can see, still 6.5 minutes left in the warm-up session. So that gives us a little bit of time to talk about, obviously, the goings-on in the championship. And as you can see, got a fancy new graphic right there. That is the Drivers' Championship right there. So it is pointy end of the season. And as you can see, that championship gap from the last time we broadcast has come down quite a bit. It was, I believe, at some stage between Foley and Owen, it was about 50 or 60 points. So the fact that he's got that within, obviously, 30 points now, obviously the gap being 23 points, and a win being 25, got to say, Foley is a fair chance with obviously 2 races tonight, and then another couple more coming up as well. Let me just find myself our calendar. But yeah, obviously is good to see Brenton Foley clawing that back, making a championship of things. So yeah, obviously Guaporé, this is obviously 2 races tonight. So we've got another 2 in 2 weeks' time at Caruaru. That'll be a very tough race, as will the Curvelo circuit. Another 2 races, and then the final round at Interlagos with the Cafe Chicane. So there is still plenty to play for, and the championship fight is tightening up. Obviously, Termo is making a fair effort, obviously, of late. Obviously, he's been in some pretty decent form. Baker and Cracker, they will be quite disappointed, obviously, at Adelaide, where both of them were on for a fairly decent result, but obviously things didn't quite go their way. But still, solid season for both those drivers. Brendan Ross is been fairly quiet for the majority of the season, but his results are starting, obviously, to heat up. So we could see him, Baker, and Termo sort of battle it out for that final spot in the championship standings. We might even see Cracker there too. And then we've got Wayne Whitmore, Dwayne Davies. I do believe Dwayne Davies did win a race last time out. And obviously Reece Gardner, who's missed quite a few rounds, but it is good to see him back tonight. So he'll be hoping to, obviously, well, he should jump up in front of Scott Morrill, barring a couple DNFs, because obviously Scott Morrill, unfortunately, not here tonight. But that is the top 10 in the championship. I haven't got the rest of the well, I do have actually the rest of the championship, but I don't have a graphic for you. But after that, we've got Matt Williams, who is not here tonight, is just overseeing the server. He's on 73 points. Luke Joyner, he is on 67. Steve Bolger on 57. In 15th, or 14th I should say, we've got Corey Preston, who is not here tonight. Lee Sanford on 47. Fernando Bruno, who's not been here for a while, is on 42. Ben Purse on 34. Gary Neville on 23. And then Glenn Miles and Brian Walsh round out the top 20 in the championship. And then going over to the teams championship now. Again, I don't have a graphic for that. I was making it, but I had to sort out dinner and the like before the broadcast, so ran out of time for that. But I did work out the point standings. These aren't quite official because we'll have to sort out a couple things with a certain team in particular, which is the Far Canal Racing team. Obviously, they have 3 drivers, and only 2 drivers can score points. But adding up the points that Brenton Foley has scored is 162 with the 65 that the Far Canal Racing team have scored. That puts them on 227, but that will obviously change with some of their points being scored where there's been 3 of their drivers have scored. So the lowest driver, their points will have to be taken out for that. So that'll probably see the Cracker Racing team actually jump up to the lead in the team's championship on 226 points. And then we have Piston Broke Racing of Brandon Rast and Scott Murrell on 181 points. And that's followed by a lone effort from Termo on 135 for Chevrolet Castrol Racing. And then D2 Racing of Dwayne Davies and Lee Sanford, fifth with 133. And then we have Corey Preston's solo effort on 51, followed by the Playboy Racing / Ford Underperformance Racing of Brian Walsh and Glenn Miles on 39. And well, the points after that, Hector Kaz has only shown up for one round for New Zealand Sim Racing on 14. Fernando Bruno only, I believe, registered his team a bit late, so his team only has 8 points, and the Candyman Racing of River Whisper, again, I believe he's only shown up for one round, so he's on 7 points in the team's championship. Alright, so we've got about 20 seconds until obviously the timer runs out in the warm-up session, and then obviously we'll have a little bit of a time for it to tick over. So I'll just go and sort some things out admin-wise, so I'll just have to hide the screen there for a moment. Alright, just sorting out the weight there as we get to get underway. And the drivers now forming up onto the grid. And again, just another reminder that obviously these races are 25 minutes long, plus an extra lap after time expires and the leader crosses the start-finish line. And even though that's where the drivers grid up right there, that is not where the drivers will take off. The actual start-finish line where the timing is displayed is right there on your screen. That's about another 150 metres down the road. Although that said, it looks like it's a standing start. So let me just sort some things out. Just double check the old server for a moment. Alright, it's rolling start. And there's the safety car. Okay, so it's just formed up just a little bit differently. My mistake. But once again, just to go through obviously the starting order, we've got Brenton Foley starting from pole position. Brandon Rast to start from P2 alongside him. Got Termo in P3 for Chevrolet Castrol Racing. P4 got Steve Bulger. P5 is Dwayne Davies for D2 Racing. Reese Gardner will start P6 for Fusion Sim Racing. Luke Joyner will start 7th, with James Owen 8th. Mike Coulston for Flat Spot Racing will start 9th, and Baker will start alongside him, so he's a little bit down the field. Brian Walsh will start 11th, 12th for Wayne Whitmore, and Glenn Miles will round up the back of the grid before we get underway. The drivers still have about one or 2 corners to go. Yep, I believe this is the final turn. Yep. Safety car pulls in. Drivers are ordered to obviously maintain on 100 kilometers per hour until the start-finish line. And away we go. Looks like Reece Gardner had a solid start there. He is alongside Steve Bolger and Dwayne Davies. So Gardner holds on, he moves up a place, he's now up into 4th place. Foley still leads, he's got a little bit of a gap over Brendan Ross and Turmo. Steve Bolger running a little bit wide there, it's compromised him, and Davies and Bolger having a look up the inside of Gardner there into turn 2. Gardner trying to hold on, obviously he's got a bit of weight on compared to Steve Bolger. And it looks like Turmo now is starting to pressure Brendan Ross just a little bit. Too wide through that long banked hairpin, and it looks like Foley's broken away just a little bit. Turmo trying to pressurise Brendan Ross for second. Reece Gardner looks like he's got a little bit of a reprieve now, a little bit of a gap between himself and Davies, and Bolger has dropped back behind Davies, and now he's coming under threat from James Owen, who'll be looking to force his way up through the field and limit obviously the points differential between himself and Brendan Foley, who's currently leading. Behind him, Baker is up 2 spots, and Joyner down 2, Mike Coulson down 1, Wayne Whitmore's moved up 1 in front of Brian Walsh, and Brian Walsh is down 1. And that is the field after 1 lap. As Brendan Foley there runs wide at turn 1, it's going to compromise him a little bit, and it's allowed Brandon Ross and Turmo to close in. But these front 3, they've got a little bit of time over Dwayne Davies now, so Reece Gardner's made a mistake. No, he's just a little bit slow. Davies having a look up the inside into turn 1, and he gets it done. So obviously that weight hampering Gardner's efforts a little bit, and he got a little bit of slide on too. As we come back live, and now he's got James Owen, who did get past Steve Bolger. He's now right behind Gardner, so this looks like we've got sort of 2 packs, with obviously Foley in the lead with Ross and Turmo not far behind, and then a little bit of a gap to Davies, who's got Reece Gardner and James Owen as well as Bolger obviously there. And then we've got another little pack with Baker, Mike Coulston, Luke Joyner and Wayne Whitmore. And then we have the 2 Ford underperformance racing cars of Brian Walsh and Glenn Miles sort of battling out. So the field hasn't really spread out too much. 3 laps in so far. Foley sets the fastest up in the race, so 1:15.2. As we see, it looks like Mike Coulson having a look up the inside of Baker into turn 1. Not quite close enough to get it done, as Turmo runs wide, and that's going to leave him vulnerable to Dwayne Davies in behind. But Davies not quite close enough to get the job done into turn 2, but he'll have a decent run going into the hairpin up here. And behind him, James Owen having a look up the inside of Gardner, who is sliding around just a little bit, so his weight is probably a little bit uncomfortable. And they're going to go side by side through the fast right hand kink here. So Owen's going to have to try and go around the outside, and backs out of it. And as you can see, Gardner using all the road to extract every bit of speed out of that thing. So he's carrying, I think, 20 kilos extra over James Owen behind him, so he has to use every bit of road and more to hold on. And it looks like Brendan Ross now is closed right up to Brenton Foley. Yeah, there it is, fastest lap of the race. Actually, Dwayne Davies, but Brendan Ross is only a tenth slower than that. As we see, looks like James Owen making a move on Gardner for P5 in turn 1, as Dwayne Davies drifts it through turn 1. And the nature of this circuit, that front right tyre is one you're going to want to obviously nurse, because a lot of these corners, like obviously long radius and fast left-hand turns. So that front right, you don't want to be wearing that out too early. And as we've seen from Dwayne, he's had a couple slides now. So he's starting to work his tyres a little bit more than everybody else at the moment. And it's cost him a bit of time to the front 3, who are still inseparable. As you can see, field's still fairly close together. 4 laps in, and first to 13th is 10.9 seconds, as Foley's put in a very decent final sector. He's sort of stretched away from Ross, and Ross under pressure now from Turmo, who's having a look up the inside. And you'd probably say that he'd get the job done here as Steve Bolger sets the fastest lap. And James Owen too is not far off either. As Foley's a massive slide on at turn 1, drifts it out. That's going to cost him time as Turmo moves up now into P2. So Foley probably a little bit lucky that these two are battling out, because if it was just one of them, they wouldn't have cost each other time, and they would have put Foley under more pressure as Turmo gets the job done. Just after turn 2, obviously Ross didn't want to give it up and didn't make it easy for a Preston Broke Racing driver. And now Turmo looking very, very quick. And there was a little bit of discussion about adding weight. I think following with this round, he probably is going to find himself with an additional 20 kilograms. Obviously his form's been pretty hot as of late. And if he keeps this up, he will find himself with a little bit extra. So he uses all the road and a little bit of dirt on the inside there to try and get a good run on Foley. He goes defensive early, and he's going to try and force Turmo to go around the outside as Turmo, and then followed by James Owen, who sets the fastest lap of the race. So gradually the lap times are starting to tumble little bit by little bit as see Brendan Ross have a go up the inside of Turmo. Surprise the camera as Turmo pushing too hard trying to defend that position, runs wide, and he's now vulnerable to Dwayne Davies and James Owen, who are still battling out between themselves. And looks like the field, after spreading out just a little bit, is starting to converge once again up the front as the front three can't quite get away. And they continue to hinder themselves as they battle, but after that, obviously, Ross overtaken, Turmo running wide. That's given Foley now a bit of breathing room. And with Owen and Davies battling it out, it did cost them a little bit of time as they were much closer. Going into turn 1. As Ross runs wide there, off onto the grass, keeps his foot in, and he will lose out 1, possibly 2 positions. Through the long final turn. Owen tries to stick his nose up, but Ross having none of it. And Ross now stick in Turmo slipstreams to try and hold on. Davies now having a look up the inside of Owen, as it looks like Ross goes a little bit defensive there, or perhaps trying to unsettle Turmo in front, who does lock up. And looks like Davies now edges in front of James Owen, but Owen's got the inside for turn 2. A little bit of contact there, and it's forced Dwayne Davies wide, and it's cost him a couple of car lengths, and it's going to put him under pressure from Steve Bolger and Reece Gardner behind. So you see Brendan Ross there lock up, and I believe there's Turmo run very, very wide there at the hairpin, and that's cost him time, and that's allowed Foley now. He's got 1.5 seconds over these guys now, but these guys battling. I would say that these guys should probably just concentrate on just not battling so much and just reeling in the lead, which has now grown to 1.8 seconds. I'd probably suggest them to just stop battling and close that gap down, but the nature of this touring car series is that people battle for sheep stations from obviously lap 1 till the final lap. So that's going to help Brenton Foley out, as now James Owen is right behind Ross once again, and looks like Brendan Ross is going to have a look up the inside again to Turmo. He's very close, has a look, and he does send it as Foley once again gets a bit of a slide on, but Ross does make the move stick and sort of parks it on the exit there. Didn't want to give Turmo a good run, bit of racecraft there, but he does drift it through turn 2. It's cost himself a bit of time, and it's compromised Owen a little bit as well. And Ross is going to have to go defensive into the hairpin, and that's allowed Dwayne Davies now to close right in on the back of this pack, as well as Steve Bolger. Reece Gardner now, he's coming under attack from Baker, who started to find just a little bit of speed of late. So he's moved up, as has Mike Coulston now So he's moved up. He's stayed very qualified, but from a couple laps ago at least, he's moved closer towards obviously the upper midfield. And Foley was about 2 seconds. It was 2.5 seconds. So he's made a mistake in the middle sector to allow Ross and Turmo to close back in. So we'll see what lap time he sets here. 1:15.2. Or perhaps Ross and Turmo were just quicker in that middle sector, because he did lose a lot of time as Turmo has a look up the inside of Ross. Both of them locking up just a little bit. But Ross holds on around the outside, and he'll have the inside for turn 2. And this should allow, it will allow James Owen to close in once again. A little bit of contact between Turmo and Ross again. Owen pushing very hard on the exit. Half his car onto the grass, which isn't ideal. But as we see, Turmo, very late braking manoeuvre up the inside of Ross into the hairpin. And he gets it done. Ross trying to get the crisscross done, but he's going to be on the outside to the fast right-hand sweeper. So he won't get that done. He'll have to yield that position and probably get him back into turn 1. But he's also going to have to contend with James Owen behind. As Ross has a look up the inside. Turmo defends very aggressively. And that forced Ross wide. And that's cost Ross a position to Owen. And Owen also looking racing. He's going to want to move up as Turmo locks up at the final corner. And he's very wide out on the marbles. And so Turmo now, he's going to lose 2 positions. And after that little bit of argy-bargy in the braking zone, Ross isn't going to give him too much space. Now Davies wants to have a look up the inside of Turmo as well. So he's going to go from 2nd to 5th. And as Davies tries to go for both of them, and he gets it done. So Davies now up to P3, and James Owen, after not qualifying too well, he's up 6 spots now, up to P2. And he's got obviously Turmo, Davies, and Ross behind him. And Turmo and Ross, they've compromised each other's races here. They've allowed Owen and Davies to close in and now also get past them. So they should probably just ease up for a lap or 2 and get themselves up a few spots and then sort it out at the end of the race. But they're just here to race hard, and that's what they're going to do all race long, even if it does compromise them a little bit. But at the front, Bretton Foley leads by 1.4 seconds, so he's remained steady throughout the race so far, while those behind him have made life difficult for themselves for the entire race. Foley crosses line 15.1, 15.5 for Owen, 15.5 for Davies, who sets his personal best. Ross a 15.1 and Turmo a 15.6 after losing 3 spots into turn 1. So that gap between first and second, also first and second in the championship, is now down to 1 point. We've still got obviously just under 12 minutes remaining, plus obviously the additional lap. And Foley, he hasn't battled too hard, unlike obviously Owen, Davies, Ross and Turmo behind. So wouldn't hazard a guess that, well, I wouldn't be surprised, I should say, that obviously his tyres should be a little bit easier than, or a little bit better than obviously those around him. He's been able to drive the lines he wants without pushing too hard. So he'll be hoping to see use those tyres that he has left at the end of the race, while those around him or behind him have pushed hard all race to try and catch back up and battle it. But that gap now is down under a second as Owen runs wide, as does Davies. And Ross and Turbo are close to losing time as well by going off. All of them pushing very hard. And that has allowed Foley just a little bit more breathing room now. But that gap still 0.6 of a second. And yeah, these front 5, as Turbo runs wide there, now all separated by, well, 1.5 seconds. So very, very close between them. And Stewie Bolger is closing in just a little bit as well, with 10.5 minutes remaining. And now Owen right behind Foley. It's right up, quite pacey at the moment. And Dwayne Davies also right there. Foley a little bit taking the shallower line there. A little bit defensive at the moment, so he's going to be vulnerable as Owen tries the inside into the final corner. Gives Foley a little bit of a nudge there. And Foley's going to have to try and hang on around the outside. It's going to be a drag down into turn one, and Foley looks like he got a slightly better exit. He's slightly pulling ahead, but he will be vulnerable on the inside to both Owen and Davies. And there it is. Davies also sends it up the inside. So Foley, for the first time this race, does not lead. And James Owen takes the lead with Dwayne Davies right there behind. That's it though. Foley is not giving up on P2. Having a look around the outside of Davies. Davies goes defensive. And Owen a little bit wide there into the hairpins. Allowed Davies to close in just a little bit. But he's got the better exit, so he's set himself up for the exit, and he's broken away by 10th or 2 there, and Foley remains in the slipstream very close to Dwayne Davies. Davies has a look up the inside of Owen. Can't quite make it stick, but it does compromise both drives and allows Foley as well as Ross and Turmo in behind to close right in. And I wouldn't be surprised if Davies gets a good run and has a go into turn one. He's fairly close. And he's got the slipstream. I've seen him make late braking manoeuvres into turn one before. He's having a look and he's going to go for it. And look out for Foley as well to send it up the inside. And in fact, Davies outbroke himself. It compromised Owen a little bit, and it's allowed Foley to now retake the lead as Davies drops down to 4th place. And Owen running at the back of Foley there, trying to force the issue, but Foley holds firm. And that's compromised Owen, and now Ross trying to have a, trying to go around the outside of Owen into the hairpin, which probably not going to happen. So Foley and Turmo now right back in the game. So come up to flip-flop left and a right. Owen going for a late braking manoeuvre into the final corner. Another little bit of contact as well. Foley straight back into the slipstream. He'll probably have another go up the inside into turn one. One would have to assume he's right there with him. And Turmo and Ross having their own battle as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if Davies ended up in the lead as Ross locks up. Foley tries to go up the inside and Owen tries to hold on around the outside. Foley leaves just a little bit of room. And Foley, a little bit of contact. So Owen, again, not quite leaving the space that Foley was leaving to Owen. But they continue to battle on and into the hairpin. Foley stays on the inside. Owen on the outside is going to get shuffled back just a little bit, but he'll get a better exit and probably hold on to P2 as he has the inside to the kink with Brendan Ross on the outside. And as you can see, Steve Bolger has also joined the fray. A little bit of contact between Turmo and Ross there, and that's dropped Turmo now down to 5th. And as you can see, a bit of front end damage on that Chevrolet Cruze as Turmo tries to hold on, and Davies tries to get him back. Owen runs wide. That's going to compromise him a little bit, and it's going to allow Ross to close in just a little bit. He's got the slipstream. We have seen him make, obviously, late braking manoeuvres up the inside into one before. It looks to do it again. Decides against it, backs out of it as Owen went deep under brakes as well, but Foley holds on. Does run wide though, but he will have the inside for turn 2. It's going to allow Ross to close in as these two battle it out. And Turmo has got past Dwayne Davies into turn 1 or 2 there. Davies now having a look up into the hairpin as Owen has a look up the inside of Foley there. Might have been a little bit of contact as he's forced his way up the inside of the hairpin, but he's going to have to go around the outside at the right hand kink. So Foley will hold on for now. And that's giving Ross a good opportunity to have a look up the inside here. He's trying it. Might have been a little bit of contact, but Owen holds on. Hart would have skipped a beat there, and that's allowed now turn mode. He's now right behind Brendan Ross into the final corner. So we're still with under 5 minutes to go. And Owen looks like he's going to make a move now. He's got the better exit. And he's going to try and go up the inside into turn one. Once again, this is a fantastic battle for the lead. As Owen Foley turned in on Owen, because obviously Foley wanted to make the corner. But with all that going on, that's allowed Ross into the lead. And now they're going to go 3 wide into turn 2. And somehow Brenton Foley's going to maintain the lead, and Owen has the lead, but Foley will have the inside line into the hairpin, and Ross might follow up the inside of Brenton Foley. Is both Foley and Owen are on wide there. Owen out in the marbles a little bit, but now he's going to have the inside to the kink, and then it go 3 wide through the kink, so we're right on board. So you have a look on the rear wing of Davies. It's Owen, a little bit of lag there, and it's compromised Davies and Ross, so that spun them both around. So a little bit of lag there. Owen completely disappeared. Have a look at the replay, or at least it appeared so. So coming out, a little bit of internet issues, a little bit of lag there, and a little bit of contact from Ross, and then obviously Dwayne Davies kept his foot in it, and obviously that sent both Owen and Ross around, and that's dropped them a couple seconds back now. As James Owen once again, he's disappeared, so he's having some internet issues. Turmo and Bolger now into second and third. Brenton Foley, he's got a little bit of breathing room, which he'll be quite thankful for after the last 5 or 6 laps, where he's done a fantastic job to maintain, obviously staying in the top 3. Turmo now, he finds himself into P2. He's finally broken away from Ross for a little while, but so he'll be hoping to put together a couple decent laps if he hasn't overworked his tyres, and he'll want to close in on Foley and obviously give himself a chance of claiming a victory. And Steve Bolger, he's been nice and clean throughout. He hasn't obviously been the quickest driver out there, but he hasn't put a foot wrong yet. So he's having a very good race so far, and he finds himself in P3, and he's given himself a chance with 2.5 minutes remaining to nab a possible victory if he can keep it going. And obviously with the way people are racing around him, if he can avoid that, he might find himself, as I said, on the top step of the podium. Behind him, Owen and Ross, after coming together, they're now 4.5 seconds behind Foley, and behind them got Coulston, Baker and Reece Gardner battling it out for P6. So these guys will probably have a crack of a race as well, but due to the battle for the lead, we've missed all of it, as they all sort of mess up their braking zone just a little bit there. And they've got Wayne Whitmore behind them, and obviously Dwayne Davies after that spin, as we saw a couple laps ago. That's dropped him down into 10th, as they've got Baker up the inside of Mike Coulston. He's up 3 spots from where he qualified. He's going to try and go the long way around the hairpin. He's on the marbles, and that's forced him wide and off the track, and that's allowed a couple of guys past. A bit more up to 8th, and now Gardner, he's right behind Baker, and he wanted to take that P6 as he's slowly fallen away from that front pack. So just to continue to a little bit of contact there. Gardner runs wide, so that's going to cost him a couple spots, as Whitmore's right there as well. That's it though, he's actually turned out not too bad. So Baker's probably lifted quite a bit there, and it's compromised him a little bit. So it's going to be 3 wide into turn 1 unless one of them backs out. Gardner going to try and go around the outside, as you see plenty of smoke there as drivers lock up into turn 1, but Baker holds on, and Whitmore tries to go around the outside of Whitmore. A little bit of contact, or Whitmore tries to go around the outside of Gardner, I should say, and a little bit of contact there. It's no one in the barrier, thankfully, and now Mike Coulston right there as well, and Dwayne Davies also continuing to close in. Brendan Ross has made his way in front of James Owen now, up into P4, and Turmo's broken away from Steve Bolger, and he's right behind Brenton Foley as time expires. So this will be the penultimate lap. When they cross the line, it will be the start of the final lap. So Turmo is going to have a good run. Foley goes defensive early. We've not seen anyone go around the outside at turn 1 yet, so he's going to have to earn his pay here as Turmo if he wants to get it done. Foley's going to make it very difficult for himself. And Foley does now break himself, and Turmo is forced to slot in behind. And Turmo's going to have to get it done another way as Ross and Owen battle it out for P4 in the background. Now, with Turmo and Foley battling, it wouldn't surprise me if there's contact and Bolger ended up sneaking a win, so I wouldn't mind being in Steve Bolger's Renault. There's a little bit of a lock-up and not the most ideal line from Turmo. There's compromised him a little bit, but he is still in striking distance to make a move, as we see up on this left-hander after this right-hand kink. Seen a number of moves as Foley goes defensive a little bit. Yeah, goes defensive early. As Turmo takes the wider line to get the better exit, and he's going to try and set himself up into the final corner. Foley goes defensive, and now he's going to have to make Turmo out-drag him in down the straight. And it looks like Foley's compromised himself a little bit, and that's going to give Turmo a fantastic run. It's going to be a dead heat. A little bit of contact as Foley pushes Turmo onto the grass, and it's a dead heat, and Turmo wins by 0.005 of a second. So that little mistake from Foley in the mid-court of the final corner, and he unfortunately doesn't quite hold on, but Turmo steals it right at the end. And Steve Bolger will finish in P3. Brendan Ross will finish P4, 7/10 in front of James Owen. Baker will finish P6 in front of Wayne Whitmore. 8th goes to Reese Gardner. Dwayne Davies would eventually finish in P9. Luke Joyner, pretty quiet race for him. He finishes in 10th. And Mike Coulston, it looks like he is out of fuel about 150 metres from the start-finish line, so he won't finish. And he'll actually have to start last in the reverse grid race. So absolute shame for him as Glenn Miles finishes in 11th place and Brian Walsh finishes in 12th. So, well, that was an absolutely chaotic race. And out of the 21 laps that we had, I think there was a battle for the lead on at least 18 of them. So 17 or 18 of them. So absolutely chaotic race. I know Brenton Foley will be, as you saw after the race, obviously driving into the barrier. Obviously not happy with how obviously the race ended for him. But I think he can hold his head pretty high, considering obviously he's carrying 80 kilograms, while I don't believe Turmo is carrying... Yes, I don't believe Turmo is carrying any. So the fact that he held on the way he did around obviously such a fast circuit was obviously a pretty valiant effort. And then obviously Steve Bolger himself, obviously he was well, the quiet one out of pretty much the entire field. Didn't really battle anybody, just kept it nice and clean, stayed out of all the silly stuff, and he earned himself a very good 3rd place. And Brendan Ross and James Owen, both of them battled very hard, and I think it's probably justifiably so that they ended up 4th and 5th as opposed to on the podium, because I think both of them at times just overdrove their cars and over raced when they probably should have been a little bit more conservative and circumspect. And obviously the racing incidents that they had obviously dropped them down the field just a little bit. And then obviously the battle for 6th between Baker, Whitmore and Gardner, as well as Dwayne Davies a little bit at the end. I do apologise for not capturing more of it, but the battle for the lead was as hectic as, well, we're ever going to see. But obviously those guys had a fantastic battle with, unfortunately for Gardner, he obviously dropped behind Whitmore at the end, and Baker did a good job holding on there for P6. Obviously Dane Davies, he was having a pretty good run, but he kept his foot in it when he probably should have just lifted out just a little bit. And he ran into the back of obviously James Owen, and that dropped him down the field towards the end of the race. So that is race 1 done and dusted, and I've got to say I didn't have a break for any of that. So it's good to it's good to have just a little bit of a break. So I'll just take a short break for myself and have a drink, as well as set the grid for the second race. So join us shortly. So welcome back. We still have a couple minutes left in the warm-up for people to obviously sort their stuff out. So we'll just give the drivers another couple minutes, just as I said, just sort some things out, and then we'll go over to obviously the second race, being the reverse grid race. But yeah, very, very action-packed opening race from Guaporé. I believe he's not here at the moment, but for the second race we have been joined by none other than El Chief. Just trying to go through live races and sort out the results for that final race. Just upload that. So yeah, that first race, absolute cracker, literally down to the wire, 5 thousandths of a second, separating Termo from Brendan Ross, or not Brendan Ross, from Brendan Foley, who just couldn't quite hang on. But still a very valiant effort on his part to even get that close. So obviously Foley once again outscoring James Owen, and I'm just trying to obviously work out the points. I do believe he outscored Owen by let me just bring up the points. So as he outscored Owen by 8 points, so that championship gap now, it was, I believe, let's just bring it up out on the screen at the moment. So it was 23 points, so it should be down to about 15 points between James Owen and Brenton Foley, with see quite a few rounds to go. So that championship battle is getting ever closer. So yes, the race 1 result is now up on live races, should users want to check it out. And just going to be going through and uploading the other results from the night, and have that all ready to go and sorted as soon as possible. But we've seen obviously in the past that reverse grid races can be just as chaotic, if not more so, than obviously the original races, the first races of the night. So with a few drivers out of position, it will be interesting to see how obviously this second race commences. And we'll see Brenton Foley, who's normally quite good at picking his way through the field, while some of his contemporaries do struggle in the reverse grid races, especially in the opening sections. And with time now ticking over past 5 minutes, the drivers have had their warning, and it's now ticking over to the race session. And we're a minute from the formation lap getting underway. So we're going to have both the Ford Underperformance Racing Ford Focuses. They'll be the ones to lead us away. Hopefully we have a nice clean start. Obviously we have seen in a number of races that obviously these guys have had one or two issues obviously getting away correctly, but we do hope for a nice clean getaway. There we go, there's everybody out on screen. We do have Luke Joyner and Dwayne Davies in the pits, and they're leaving it very late. Luke Joyner's made it onto the grid. Dwayne Davies, he might have missed the start here. So no, he hasn't. He's just very, very late. Left it very late on the grid. Obviously, don't have a timer on my screen to tell you when the formation lap begins, but Glenn Miles has got us underway first, and there's Brian Walsh. He's now got us underway for Underperformance Racing. So I do believe we now have been joined by our illustrious leader.
Illustrious, eh?
Yes, illustrious leader, Kim Jong.
I'm so ornery. bit of Team America for the people out there. Why don't you take us through the grid, Mr. Wedding?
Alright, so we've got Brian Walsh will start us off. He's trying to catch up to the safety car. That's why the field's strung out just a little bit. Miles will start alongside him, so both the FUR cars will lead us away. Joyner to start from third. Dwayne Davies has put himself in prime position after obviously having a little bit of an error towards the end of the last race. Obviously putting him down the field, so he'll start fourth and put himself in a good position. But this time out, Chris Gardner will start fifth. Whitmore will start sixth in seventh. We've got Baker, James Owen, eighth. Brandon Rast will start ninth. Steve Bolger, 10th. Brendan Foley was 5/1000ths of a second away from claiming race 1 victory. Quite hold on. So he started the second race. We've got Turmo in 12th, and unfortunately for Mike Colston, he run out of fuel just before the start-finish line. So that's why he's starting at the back as Brian Walsh crosses the start-finish line, and we are underway for race 2 at Guaporé. Looks like Glenn Miles is going to have a little bit of a look up the inside of his teammate. And behind him looks like Davies and Whitmore are going to try and sneak past Joyner. But at the moment, Glenn Miles into the lead at turn 1. And Walsh snuck in behind into P2. Davies trying to go around the outside of Walsh, and a little bit of a wiggle there for Dwayne Davies. I don't know if it's contact, we've just lost it under braking, but he's now dropped down, and now Joyner and Walsh side by side for P2, and Davies is going to try and go up the inside of both of them into the hairpin.
Gets through on Walsh there, does Davies, after a ballsy effort.
So James Owen move up 4 spots off the start line, so he's now right behind Dwayne Davies. Glenn Miles continues.
Oh, Gardner has possibly gone around it. Yeah, he's gone around Ross has got caught up in that, as has Michael, so it looks like it may have checked up Foley and alike as well further back in the field.
Let's just have a look at the replay and see what happened here. So Walsh, Whitmore and Gardner side by side led. Whitmore backed out of it, and then it looks like Walsh just ran wide and forced Gardner to go off the road and unfortunately lose control. Brandon Ross obviously collected Gardner, as did Michael, so both of them had nowhere to go. But back live, and Glenn Miles continues to lead. Dwayne Davies forces himself up the inside of Luke Joyner as Glenn Miles now runs wide, and that allows Dwayne Davies into the lead. Luke Joyner into second, and obviously Glenn Miles now down into P3, and looks like Owen's going to try and get a piece of that action and try and go around the outside into the hairpin of Glenn Miles.
Further back in the field, we've had Foley and Bolger side by side for the last few corners, trading a little bit of paint, but nothing too serious between them yet. Looks like Foley's got that done now, though, although Bolger does tuck in right underneath that rib wing. Just a little bit through the hairpin there. Miles didn't want to give up the position so easily behind. Oh, 3 wide.
Foley having a look up the inside of Baker, who was having a look up the inside of Whitmore, so very feisty down there. The battle for 5th place. Chris Gardner's got himself a drive-through. I'm going to hazard S. He's entered the pits, so I don't know. And in fact, he's now retired, so obviously he's entered the pit lane probably too quickly, as now James Owen now gets past Joyner, but outbrakes himself, and Joyner sticks it back up the inside and says, I'm not giving you second, and Owen will have to go around the outside of turn 2 if he wants to get that job done. Yeah, all music to the ears of Dwayne Davies at the moment. He is about a second and a half away through the previous sector, which I assume was the first one, but I'm probably mistaken. In the second sector now, I do believe.
Oh, I fluked that one. I mean, I was brilliant there.
Yes, and once again, Owen and Joyner side by side through the right-hand kick. I don't have a track number which says the track numbers alongside me to obviously call out which corner they're at, as Joyner looks to have a go up the left-hand corner there, but not quite close enough, and Owen holds on, and behind there, Glenn Miles off in the booties, and a little bit of contact from Turmo and Ross there, as Ross wide. There's obviously Glenn Miles
We've got Foley up into 4th place now as well after a very long-winded move through the final corner on Baker.
He was behind Whitmore and Baker, who's Whitmore has a look up the inside of Baker, but Baker will hold on around the outside there from turn 2. Foley was behind that group, but he's picked his way through it, as we've seen him do many times in the past, and now he finds himself in a bit of clear air and is giving himself a chance to pick off Luke Joyner, who's just dropped off the back of James Owen just a little bit as Owen tries to chase down Dwayne Davies. So it looks like they're on 3 wide there. Baker up the inside, backs out of it, loses position to Turmo. Whitmore holds on to P5 for now, and they've got Brandon Ross right behind him, and Steve Bolger is also there.
Yeah, Brandon was not too happy with Turmo after the first race, a little bit of roughing up between them throughout that race, so I'd imagine he'll be very aggressive trying to get through on Baker to get up and try and get in front of Turmo.
Well, they certainly did not make life easy for each other, but they could have been getting after race leader Britton Foley and probably extend a little bit of a gap over it. Instead, they just duped it out and cost each other time, and in the end it lost them time. So obviously Owen and Davies behind, and obviously from Ross it cost them dearly, and didn't even have a chance in the end to try and claim a win.
Has now got in front of Baker, as Ross. These guys ahead do continue going side by side, so this battle looks like it'll continue on for a while yet, but they'll probably just put the curse on it.
Whitmore has been defending pretty hard and making life very difficult for Turmo. So Turmo's going to try and go around the outside, but he's going to compromise himself, and Ross could get him now. He could get Turmo into the final corner. I've seen a few overtakes into there. Turmo is on the outside, and he's got Ross alongside him, but Ross isn't quite close enough. And Turmo is going to reset it and try and get into turn 1. Now Ross has to contend with Baker, who's having a look up the inside.
Ross just following Turmo there, could get in a position on Whitmore, though I believe he will have the inside line for turn 2.
Yeah, Whitmore will hold on.
Ross just doing everything he can to get the drive out of that compromised entry into 2. Bit of a look there, has he got the nose up?
Oh, as Turmo runs very wide, as does Whitmore. It's allowed Ross to get side by side with Whitmore, but is not going to get around the long way there, is Ross, so he's going to have to tuck in behind Whitmore. So Whitmore takes a little bit of grass there on the entry, and immediately goes to the inside and defends that line. Ross tries to get the switch back, but lost his rear end just a little bit, and has dropped him a bit of time, and Ross is able to take from Baker as Ross moves up quite a bit there into the final turn. In front of them, Britton Foley is closing the gap to Luke Joyner in front. Got now half a second. Turmo fastest lap of the race of 14.8. Dwayne Davies 1.4 seconds over Owen, so Owen is starting to close in on Dwayne Davies, so Davies did build up a little bit of a lead, but last lap and a half or so Owen has started to eat into that lead that Davies did build.
Turmo is really getting the hammer down now. He's pulled away about half a second to a second on Whitmore behind. And that gap to Foley and Joyner is definitely coming down. Those two racing will only help Turmo as well. As Foley goes to the inside there.
And he gets it done nice and easy. Luke Joyner wasn't, well, he's trying to get that position back, but he didn't want to make it too risky. But yes, Turmo had set a purple first sector, and he is the fastest man in the middle sector on this lap as well. So he's travelling quite nicely. Looks like he's going to immediately get past Luke Joyner and move up into P4. Joyner, who's trying to hold on up the inside of Turmo. A bit of contact, but he can't quite get that position back, and he cedes third or fourth place to Turmo, and now he's getting some cheese berries with Whitmore, who's closed up on those two after battling for that couple of corners there.
Bit wide there from Foley, allows Turmo right onto the back of him now. Not something Foley will be too fond of after that drag to the line in race 1. It could help him actually if Turmo does get through, getting onto the back of the lighter car, and might be able to bring them back up to Davies and Owen, especially if those two start racing.
Yeah, it might be a smart idea just to let Turmo go, because he does look a lot faster than everybody else out there, and then obviously once Turmo does catch up onto the back of Owen and Davies, because there is still a bit of time left. Obviously, if Turmo does catch up onto that group, they will battle, as we've seen obviously Turmo, Owen and Davies all do in the previous race. So letting Turmo go might not be the worst thing in the world for Foley, as it might allow him to obviously close up while those guys are battling in front. But that said, he's got to do it quickly, as he does lose out to Turmo into turn 1, because that gap to Owen and Davies is now out to 4.6 to Owen and 5.6 to Davies. So
yeah, Owen closing in on Davies as well here, now down to pretty much exactly a second between them, so could have a race for the lead on in the very near future.
It's just been a tenth here or there for Owen, just a little bit faster. Not massively faster, but just a little bit. But it all adds up in the end, as we see Dwayne Davies just a little bit of a lock up there. That's compromised his run through this right-hand sweeper. And then from the final turn, gap was 9/10 of a second. We'll see what it is as they cross the start-finish line. I dare say it'll be something like 0.7 of a second. 0.8. And what is the gap behind? So Turmo didn't quite, he wasn't faster than in the final sector, but that gap remained at 4.6 seconds between himself and James Owen in front of him. Behind Foley though, Joyner's done a pretty solid job. In the first races he's made mistakes in the past, but come second races, once he's figured out the circuit a little bit, he hasn't been too bad in a number of the races, and so far he's doing a pretty commendable job in P5, keeping and Ross behind. And they've dropped Baker and Steve Bolger, who dropped back a bit.
One of the things with this series though is, I believe you said in race 1 when I was spying on you, was doesn't really matter if you do drop back a couple seconds on the cars ahead, because before long they're probably just going to start throwing it up the inside like absolute madmen.
Well, we did see that in the first race. Everybody, for pretty much the entire length of the race, were driving like madmen, and especially Turmo and Ross, they certainly didn't help each other. Turmo could have made life a lot easier for him, and wouldn't have had to rely on a drag down to the start-finish line to nick a victory. But they raced like madmen, and obviously it cost Ross quite a few positions, and it made life more difficult for Turmo. But speaking of Turmo, he hasn't really made inroads in the last couple of laps. The gap's remained at 4.5 seconds between himself and Owen, and he's gained maybe a tenth or two on Davies in that time. So he's going to have to pick his pace up, or hope that Owen and Davies start battling to bring that gap down a bit.
The gap between Davies and Owen for the last 1.5, 2 laps has stayed pretty much bang on 0.7 of a second. So whether or not Owen's just got himself within striking range and then thought I'll back off a bit and conserve the tyres a little bit to race harder at the end, or if Davies has just started trying to push on a little bit more, will be interesting to find out.
Brendan Ross has found his way in front of Whitmore, and now he's battling pretty spiritedly with Joyner for P5, so he wants to get a bit of at the moment. So cross up just a little bit, and hasn't got the most ideal line for the final turn.
Owen with a very good final sector there, sorry Lewis. Now half a second between first and second place.
You do say it was quick, but Turmo pretty much matched it, and he's only about a tenth or so, if that, probably about faster than Davies. So it's pretty much stabilised as it is. So Davies doing a fantastic job, obviously soaking up that pressure. And I think Owen's going to have to drive pretty well if he wants to get in front of the old hack from South Australia.
Yeah, this is the point where the race for the lead does get interesting, though. It is around that half a second range where the slipstream comes into it a lot more, and it's a fairly big start-finish straight here, so we'll start seeing that come into play a bit more now, as he just decides I'll close up through the infield anyway.
It also raises, obviously, another point we did see in that first race with Turmo and Ross battling out. I know I've touched on it a couple times now, but if Owen and Davies do start battling, it does open themselves up to obviously the cars behind. I know they've got 5 seconds on the cars behind now, but I don't think James Owen is actually too much faster than Davies, so it's not.
Ooh, so we have a move for the lead.
Owen does move into the lead, but if Davies sticks with him and obviously wants to get that lead back, it will end up costing them time, as we obviously saw in that first race with a number of drivers, as Owen runs a little bit wide and allows Davies to get a good exit, and Owen going a little bit defensive into the hairpin, and Owen going defensive, and Davies just sitting on the outside, biding his time.
Ooh, we had Davies with a better run through there, I'd say. Possibly not quite getting the power down when he could, as early as he could have exit though.
We have seen a number of cars make moves into this left-hander after the right-hand kink here, but he's run on the grass and he's lost it big time. So he ran too wide there, and that's a big hit into the barrier. So that's cost him dearly. He's going to have severe damage.
Yeah.
In fact, he's retired. So that's going to move Turmo now up into P2, and that's gifted probably race victory barring driver error or internet issues. James Owen, who's got 4.6 seconds over Turmo. Turmo did make a little bit of time as obviously Davies and Owen were battling, but his middle and final sectors weren't too good, and ultimately dropped a little bit of time. So further down the field, Joyner has been overtaken by Whitmore, and he's got Baker to do it. That's the closest battle on track at the moment. 4 tenths separating the two, and Baker just looking a little bit faster at the moment in his Mitsubishi Lancer.
There's a few hairdressers out there, but we won't let that sully the evening. Field has spread out quite a bit. Joyner and Baker are the closest battle we have on track at the moment. Joyner's strong early on, but does look to have been... He's been fairly consistent, but he hasn't had quite the pace after the early stages as the other guys around him.
He's a bit more around, a little bit wide on the exit of the final turn there, ran onto the grass. So he lost a little bit of time to Ross in front, obviously to Joyner behind. So Foley is just slipping away from Turmo now, hasn't quite got the pace. This time out to stick with him. He was with him for a while, but last couple of laps he's just dropped off a little bit of time as Turmo seems 7 tenths faster on that last lap, and he gained 6 tenths of a second on our race leader. So race still not quite over yet, but Turmo's going to have to obviously continue being half a second a lap at least faster if he wants to see challenge for 2 race victories.
It could be just a case of too little too late now for Turmo to get up there. He does have very strong pace, but there's only about another 6 laps left in the race with the way the time works with the +1 lap.
He's actually dropped time in that middle sector, so even though he's fairly quick, his consistency hasn't been too great, because it's he's dropped about 4 tenths of a second in that middle sector, and he can't afford to do that if he wants to close that gap down. 15.7 for Owen and a 16.0
as Turmo runs wide into turn 1, I think it was. I'm not in commentary mode at all tonight, so. As word on the street is we have audio issues. Where one guy's mic is way too quiet, and the other guy is loud.
Well,
There. Sound like you're talking to me from inside a mattress.
I did just try and make a slight change to it. I don't know if that's any better, but
That's good enough for me.
alright, well, it would help if someone said who was louder and who was more quiet, but instead of just saying one's louder than the other. But anyway, James Owen has made a little bit of a mistake on this lap himself. He's dropped 4/10 in the first 2 sectors.
Interesting to see as Turmo across the line. No, Owen's got another 10th back in that final sector.
Yeah, so this race probably about over for the lead. And in fact, Brendan Ross now, he's closing in on Brenton Foley for 3rd place.
Brandon absolutely desperate for that contract next season, so we'll see if he goes for the pass.
Yeah,
I know he's probably listening, so I just thought I should say that.
well, it is interesting. Obviously, he is contracted with FCR Motorsport in GT3s. Probably wouldn't mind a contract, obviously, next season for the touring cars, but with Brenton Foley obviously contending for the championship, overtaking him might not be the smartest option for his racing career if he obviously wants to ride with FCR next season.
I'm enjoying this. Just because I know he's almost certainly got the stream on, and I don't think he mutes them. It's nice to see the old fucking L Racing logo back out there, though.
It's just good to be out here, well, from my own perspective, good to be out commentating on Monday night again.
It's so good that you wanted to share it with me.
Indeed.
Missed you too, buddy.
As Nick Joyner and Baker continue to battle, and Steve Bolger is slowly gaining on him.
And Owen is pulling the gap back out on Turmo. That's over 4.5 seconds now, so that battle for the lead is definitely over unless one of them makes a mistake.
Yeah,
and by one of them I mean Owen.
Yeah, it looks like Turmo's lack of consistency this time out is going to cost him a chance of victory. 15.5 for Owen last time out and a 16 dead for Turmo. So that
Foley may actually be closing on Owen here. I haven't been keeping track of that gap, but it was down to 2.8, but it's just gone back up to 3.1.
Yeah, about 3 or so seconds. So probably a bit out of reach with just a tick over 2 minutes to go.
Got to support me, Red Rocket, though.
Well, it's more orange than red, but
yeah, but he was so furious at me for saying it before, but he thought it was a good one, so he didn't yell at me, so I got to use it all the time.
Yeah, well, the battle for the battle for 6th is cooled a little bit, and the battle for 7th has heated up as Bolger now. He's putting Baker under pressure as opposed to Baker putting Joyner under pressure. And Baker goes defensive into turn 1 and on the grass a little bit, so unconventional line there, and a Bolger is right there.
It looked like Bolger outbraked himself, but then with Baker hitting the grass a bit, it sort of cancelled itself out.
And Baker, again, not taking the greatest line through turn 2, and it's allowed Bolger to stick with him. Bolger trying to go around the outside once again at the hairpin. He won't do it. He's probably trying to set himself up for a good exit out of the hairpin, and then set himself up for that left-hander after this right-hand kink here.
Definitely a good move in these cars. It can be a little bit harder to pull it off, but generally when it does work, it works better in these cars than it does in others.
He did have a look, and Baker did close him off, and it did compromise Baker a little bit. Bolger now is as close as he's been as Baker goes defensive into the final turn. We've seen a couple passes into there, so obviously didn't want to let that happen. And in fact, Baker's got a better exit through that final turn, and he should hold on into turn 1 unless he outbrakes himself.
Yeah, not the ideal run through there at all for Bolger, as we've got 30 seconds left on the timer. With one lap after this one, as my ability to think returns to me.
So it will be the penultimate lap, and we do have Ross has closed up on Foley as all Turmo's run wide at the hairpin, and that's going to allow Foley to close right in. So Turmo hasn't been very consistent towards the end, and perhaps he's overworked his tyres. And
they're not too bad from the data I've got. Actually, out of the second, third, and fourth, he's right in the middle in terms of tyres. He's got better tyres than Foley, but Rossi's tyres are impeccable at the moment. Good word, that, isn't it? Impeccable.
It's an impeccable word.
Oh, indubitably.
That's the gap.
I had to say that.
It's James Owen all alone. He's at a sector of the way through the first sector, or of the final lap, and Brandon Ross right behind Foley, so he's not quite giving up on P3 at the moment. Behind them, Baker and Bolger side by side at turn 1. Giving each other a bit of room, and Bolger's going to send it up the inside at turn 2, so he holds on around the outside, up the inside at turn 2, and he should get that done. At least for now, Baker right on his bumper. He's going to have a look up the inside, but decides better of it at the hairpin. And James Owen at the final turn, so he should claim victory, and now Brendan Ross is close enough to make a move, but probably be a bit risky now. As Turmo locks up into the final turn, but he will hold on as James Owen crosses the line to take race 2. Turmo will take P2, and Ross in the slipstream of Foley isn't quite close enough, so Brendan Foley will finish in P3, Brendan Ross P4, Wayne Whitmore in P5. Luke Joyner, very solid job for him. He finishes in P6. Steve Bolger, P7. So he just got in front of Baker, and Bolger having a massive accident and putting his car on the roof while going backwards and without a wheel. So it's a fair effort, fair crash from him. Baker, P8. Mike Coulston stopped again. He stopped again. He's out of fuel. He's ran out of fuel again. So Mike Coulston has ran out of fuel in both races coming out of the final turn. So I think lesson learned. He's got to put more fuel in. It looks like Glenn Miles also out of fuel. And he wasn't lapped down either, I don't believe. So it looks like, he's out as well. And Brian Walsh will finish. Or, no, he has finished in P11. And yes, Glenn Miles is out of fuel. So there we go. And obviously Dwayne Davies and Reese Gardner were the prior retirements.
That Addison Lee logo on the side of the FUR cars looks like a penis. I'm just saying, it does.
I don't know.
Obviously, I'm more childish than you.
Obviously.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was a good race. I'm glad I was actually watching it.
It was a decent race. Not quite as entertaining as obviously the first one, but there were some interesting battles throughout. And I think with obviously Owen taking victory and Foley finishing in third, I still believe that Foley did edge closer in the championship.
Yes, Owen didn't. Actually, Foley getting second in the first race, that one could be an interesting one to watch there. Very close to a draw for the round, I'd imagine.
I'll just go and upload the results and have a look and see what it says. But it will stay around about the same. perhaps Foley gaining a point or two due to obviously finishing second compared to fifth place for James Owen in the first one. But yeah, obviously that first race, action-packed. Second one did have some battles, but the field did spread out a little bit more than obviously what we'd expect after that first race, where obviously people were where they qualified, but the field didn't really spread out. And then in the reverse grid race, it spread out, so a little bit interesting. You haven't really seen too much of that in the past. Normally, the first race is probably a little bit more spread out, and the second one a little bit more closer. But that's racing for you.
Never too sure what we're going to get next, especially this series, but always entertaining, and I was definitely entertained.
Certainly so. So just bringing up the results. So Foley finished the round with 36 points compared to 37 for Owen. So Owen did stretch the lead out by a point, but it's not over yet by any imagination. But I think Foley will be kicking himself for just making that slight error in that first race through obviously the final turn there. And we have been joined by Brenton Foley. Foley, obviously, that first race, he did a fantastic job maintaining the lead for pretty much the entire length of the race. Obviously, you did lose it, I believe, for a lap or two, but you did get it back. But you just couldn't quite hold on there. Obviously, slight error at the final turn costing you, and well, you were 5 thousandths of a second on the wrong side.
Yeah, it was a bit of pill to swallow. This track, I'm a bit of a fan of this track, but with weight, it just murders tires, and you get absolutely no drive off that last corner. So I knew I had to try something to keep JMO at bay in the last corner, but yeah, I tried to get on the accelerator a little bit early. Didn't work. I pretty much broke into wheel spin at the front, and yeah, he just drove on by.
Still, though, you've got to be pretty pleased, obviously, carrying weight around, obviously, a circuit which has many fast corners as well as, obviously, a fairly decent main straight, obviously, to maintain the consistency that you had and, obviously, finishing, obviously, second and almost a win in that first race, and, obviously, a fairly solid result in the second race as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it went. Like, it could have been far worse. When the tires were there, like I reckon I had the pace of almost everyone, but they just drop off so fast compared to some of the people without weight.
Certainly so. We did see a couple of the drivers, obviously, that did have weight, obviously, did sort of struggle towards the midpoint of the race. The lap times did certainly fall away, where obviously early on in the race we'd see times in the 14s and low 15s, and then by midpoint of the race it was pretty much low 16s and high 15s from then on out. So the weight as well as the tyres, obviously a big thing in this race. How do you think you managed, obviously, with your tyres throughout both races?
I feel like I managed them better in the first race because I kind of had that breathing space for a while. Like I was able to drive a bit smoothly without having to worry. But the second race, I had to use a lot of tyre at the start, trying to get past everyone, and a lot of people were doing a lot of blocking, and some people just didn't notice when I was trying to stick it up the inside. But that's how it is in those reverse grids. Definitely fun. But yeah, I don't know. Even though the track had far more grip in the second race, it just did not suit my car at all. It felt like a completely different car, and I didn't even get close to the times that I did in race one.
Well, perhaps obviously having too much grip, where obviously the rear end would just grip a little bit more as well, and the car wouldn't slide the way you like to get it through a couple of the corners, obviously being a little bit detrimental to lap time.
Yeah, most likely. I'd probably say it was that.
All right, so once again, still a second and a third, solid outing for you once again, Brenton Foley, and hopefully you can obviously continue your good form.
Thanks very much.
All right, and before we cross to our race winner, we'll cross to Rossi. You had a couple interesting races. Obviously, that first one, you and Turmo, obviously, you had a battle for the ages for a lot of the race, but you both in that first race, you made it very difficult for yourselves when you had obviously a heavier car in Breton Foley in front of you, but you two continue to battle like you're battling for sheep stations there, and it cost you quite a bit of lap time in the end.
In the end, it probably did, but it was just good to have a bit of fun to just be involved, throw a few punches into the race, and I don't think we were out of the lead too much throughout it all, so wasn't too detrimental to us, but overall good fun.
Certainly so. Obviously, a couple incidents toward the end of that first race did cost you a little bit, but that second race, things didn't quite work out for you.
No, I think the same thing, just got caught up in some other people's spins and just got a little bit of damage, which caused to not sort of pick up the pace like I probably should, but yeah, that sort of hurt me in the second race. So all in all, pretty good round to get 2 4th places.
Yep. Still, a couple solid points, obviously, for you. 2 fourth places, and could have been better, but it also could have been worse with obviously being caught up in a couple incidents as well. So you'll be hoping obviously to capitalise on other people's misfortunes next time out, and hope you're on the better end of the ledger.
Very much so. Thank you.
All right, so we'll cross to obviously Turmo, obviously second place in race 2 and a winner of the first race by 0.05 of a second. Turmo, obviously that first race, you and Rossi, as we just mentioned, you had a battle for the ages, but it didn't look like you made it easy for yourselves by racing each other so hard when you had the leader just a second or so up the road.
No. I thought I was doing something and I just didn't do it right.
Fair enough. And then obviously that second race there, obviously you've had a number of battles and you got past Foley fairly early on. Did you think you had a chance of closing in on Dwayne Davies and James Owen in front?
No, they just had the pace.
Fair enough. And then obviously towards the end of that second race, you had a little bit of an off. Was that like due to tyres or just a little lapse in concentration costing you that little bit of time there?
It was the tyre grip.
Fair enough. But still, solid round for you. Obviously picking up a win and a second place. That'll move you up a fair amount, well, points-wise in the championship. I'm not sure how much it'll put you up in the championship standings, but still a very good round from you, and you'll be hoping to continue that form on at the next race.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so that's all. That's us done for obviously this Monday night from Automobilista Australia. Next Monday we have the Rookie Cup. I'm just going to try and find out which circuit it is at. It is at the
Bathurst.
It's not at Bathurst. We have the Rookie Cup from Cascavel. So that'll be an interesting one for the drivers to navigate. There'll be a couple corners in those Formula Trainers, which will be a bit interesting for drivers to navigate. But I think we'll see some good racing there once again. And this Sunday we have the 90 minutes of Monza. So it's been billed as a bit of a revenge round, obviously, for a few people from obviously last year, but there was a bit of controversy with the race ending and a safety car error towards the end of the race, and I think that'll be another tightly contested round. So we do hope that people, obviously, if they aren't racing, they tune in to ARW TV and Nether for that one. And then in 2 weeks' time, we have the Chinese Grand Prix on Sunday night. So if you are interested in running in that series, there's still plenty of seats available. So obviously put your registration in on the Facebook page, grab the files and jump in. But from myself, Lewis Wedding, and from our illustrious leader, Kim Jong Scruff, we hope you've enjoyed our broadcast, and we'll catch you next week.